Yes! So I was trying to recreate the moment when I realized that I got the 18 hit plus 1 out. But it turns out to look like an overly excited ape that see a premium bananas. And I hope that the video isn't cringe enough for you to click off. Anyway, I was so happy at the moment that I just achieved one of those really cool videos like 17 combos to 19 combos. I was actually aiming at 17 plus 1 ultimate because I thought that would be more practical. And I've been playing Harumasa non-stop for the past few days with about 300 to 400 tries on that deadly assault. I actually get a loss of 15-16 hit, but I just kind of messing up on different thing on every run. The setup for Harumasa and the combos that require to execute his move, it's just simply overwhelming that it took so much mental capacity. It actually reminded me back when I was learning guitar, learning how to fingers on the minors. The hard part is not one single stroke on a note, but putting all different kind of notes together to form a song. And Harumasa somehow works the same. It's actually not that hard to learn each and every single movement. The hard part is putting them all together on different kind of mobs. And I gotta say that I almost lose my mind learning him. Even with all the inspiration like Yoji, Lin Zero, and R2, I've been studying their videos harder than studying triggers, butt cheeks, physics. And since there are so many advanced guides out there, I think my videos will just focus on how to get started, on how to practice manual chain attacks on Harumasa. I think most of the people knows that manual chain attacks on Harumasa would further increase his DPS. But before we get into the manual chain attack guide, if you're not familiar with Harumasa yet, I would highly suggest you to learn my beginners videos, link at the description, before you continue with this video. Because once you understand how his combo works in the auto chain attacks in my beginners guide, you would have a much easier time learning the manual chain attacks because the logics behind the setup are still the same. So yeah, let's get right into it. But before that, we gotta learn about what is a stun. So basically, if you fills up this bar under the HP bar, the enemy gonna get into the stun state. Not only that it immobilizes the enemy, it also gives you extra damage, which we call break multiplier. And you wanna have your DPS or Harumasa deals as much damage as possible in this time window. And we usually call it stun window. But when does the stun window happen? I think a lot of people thought that the stun window happens when it turns into gray, but it's not. The stun window actually happened when it's flashing in multiple color. And the reason why I brought this up is because you want to start DPSing or slashing with Harumasa as soon as the bar is flashing, so that you could get the most amounts of time out of the stun window. So I chain attack early on the manual mode on the left side, and in the middle I chain attack a little bit later, and out of the stun window ends at exactly the same moment. So it doesn't matter if you're manual chain attacks it or you auto chain attacks it, the stun window would be the same. But so it doesn't extend the stun window at all. Realistically, when you're dealing DPS with Harumasa, you could get about 10 to 12 slash, or maybe as much as 13 with the auto chain attacks. But when you turn it into manual chain attacks, you could slash ranging from 14 up to 19 times. But why? Because at the moment you use chain attacks, the times would keep running and using up your stun window. So we are basically saving time from the unnecessary chain attack animation and fill the time with Harumasa DPS instead, or use the necessary chain attacks like Nico's chain attack and Harumasa's chain attack. So this is the test. As you can see on the left side, I engage with Shinyi chain attacks animation, and on the right side, I just wait until it cancelled. And as you can see, it ends at exactly the same moment again, because as soon as I use the chain attack with Shinyi, the clock of the stun window would keep ticking. So one, it would avoid unnecessary chain attacks animation, like the stunner's chain attacks are usually useless. And the second is, it allows you to keep DPSing without getting interrupted. Generally, when you are using auto chain attack with any other DPS, like Jando or Miyabi, they could dish out all the DPS without getting interrupted. But ever single slash that Harumasa hit the enemy would trigger the chain attacks, and you wanna slash the enemy 13 to 16 times during the stun window, and it's impossible to do it without interruption. And you do wanna use some necessary chain attacks like Nico for the debuff and Harumasa for the quivers, which is essential to the slash. You could get away with cancelling chain attack when you're using other DPS in the auto chain attack mode, but you can't do that with Harumasa. So manual chain attacks is exceptionally important for him. The main sources of Harumasa's DPS is slashing, and to enable him to slash, you gotta generate these quivers and turns it into the X mark. And to turn the quiver into X mark, you wanna hold attack, and every 2 quiver is equivalent to 1 slash, and you could only stack up to 4 slash. And to generate quiver, basic attack 5 would generate 2, triggering and normally would generate 6 every 12 seconds, using skill, chain attacks, and using basic 5 after a chain attack would all generate 6 quivers. If you're totally clueless about what I've just said, you either go back to my beginner's guide, or you could screenshot this flowchart and save it along with your other hundreds of anime girl that you downloaded. To enable manual chain attack, you wanna pause the menu and select option, go to other, select chain attack mode, and turn it into manual mode. This is a really long wall of text, but it's basically telling you that if you hold basic attack and skill, it's not gonna trigger the chain attack. In other way around, you could trigger the chain attack with tapping basic or special attacks. This is more of a mouse and keyboard tip. I believe that R2 is using this tip. You could simply just hold E and slash the mob as usual as you would normally play, and release the skill when you wanna do the chain attack. And the reason that I don't use this tag is because I don't play mouse and keyboard, and the second reason is I didn't know this tag was exist. Anyways, totally personal preference. And the second method, which I'm using, I would just call it squeeze method. So if you're playing any other DPS, if you hold your attacks and hold your skill, it wouldn't trigger the chain attack. Like I could hold attack with Miyabi and hold skill without triggering it, and as soon as I lightly tap the skill, it would activate the chain attack. But the problem with Harumasa is that if you hold your attack for too long, it's gonna get into this charging animation and break your slash. But if you don't hold it long enough, you would be triggering the chain attack. So it does feels like you're squeezing the button. So what I do is that I hold basic and release it when it's about to reach the end of the animation. You could release it at about 70 to 80% of the animation. It's not gonna trigger the chain attacks. You don't have to hold it until the end of the animation. And it does took some practice to get used to it, and eventually it would become your muscle memory. So this is how you practice it. You wanna slash the stunned enemy without triggering the chain attacks. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and that's a success. And after you could do it consistently, you wanna practice triggering it on command. So what you wanna do is, you wanna slash the first 3 hits without triggering it, then tap it at the 4th attack to trigger the chain attacks. So it's gonna feel like 1, 2, 3, tap. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, tap. And after you could do it consistently, you wanna move on to the next exercise, which is the 7 slash. But before that, we're gonna talk about the mechanics of overcapping. If you're familiar with Harumasa, you would know that the quiver could stack on tops of each other and turn into the X mark by itself. But here we will just use the skill twice. So now you could see the X mark is available there along with 6 quiver, and you don't want to hold attack to waste out of it, but I'm holding it so that I wouldn't trigger the chain attacks with the skill. And I think this is also a pretty good recovering technique when you are making mistake, is that instead of releasing the basic attack, you just dodge cancel while holding basic attack, then tap basic attack again to activate the slash. If you do it fast enough, it wouldn't get into the charging animation. So let's get started. So what you want to do is skill on the target twice and hold basic immediately after you use the skill, dash cancel slash 1, 2, 3, then hold attack 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, that's 7 slash. So let's do it again with full speed. It's gonna look like this. 1, 2, 3, hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. And after you could do it consistently, you also want to learn how to trigger it on command. 1, 2, 3, hold, 1, 2, 3, tap, and it's gonna trigger the chain attack. I don't know how to do this with the whole skill method or the mouse and keyboard method, but you could also repeat this exercise. And also my method works on mouse and keyboard. And when you could do this consistently, congratulations! Now you just got the ticket to be part of the cool kids club of Harumasa enjoyer. You just complete the most important step of being a Harumasa main. So at the beginning of the video, we have already talked about as soon as the bar is flashing, the stun timer is already start ticking. So ideally, you want to get your first slash at the moment it start flashing, so that you could at least get 14-15 slash consistently, cause you have more time to slash. And just for you guys to understand this easier, I will just call this flashing state a pre-stun and call this gray state during stun. And the most basic goal you want to set up, you want to have 7 slash on the pre-stun and the other 7 slash during the stun. There are also cases that it's gonna distribute differently, cause I do have rotation that got like 12 stun on the pre-stun and the other 4 slash on the stun, but that's generally what you wanna aim for, which is not always, but you do wanna aim for overcapping twice during the whole rotation. And I've already talked about what is a overcapping. It allows you to slash for 7 times by just stacking quivers on tops of each other. And the reason you wanna do overcapping is because it's gonna buy you a lot of time for slashing, and the whole combination to overstack is just simply too sophisticated to explain it verbally, so I'll just make a flowchart here. So the game plan is you wanna have 6 quivers on the field before the enemy gets stunned, then you stack another 6 quivers when you are about to stun the enemy, so that you can get your first slash at the moment when they start flashing, or we call it pre-stun state. And now you could get your 7 slash on it, and you want to get one of the Harumasa's chain attacks out to get another 6 quivers. Then you stack with another 6 quivers, buy anything that you have in hand at the moment, so that you could get another 7 slash, and that would secure about 14 slash. In an ideal scenario, you want to have the anomaly procs before the stun, because the quiver from the anomaly is the hardest to get. But at the start of the game, you could have just spammed basic 5 to get 6 quiver, or if you find out that you couldn't generate the anomaly quivers during the rotation, then you could use the basic 5 after the chain attacks to get the 6 quivers. If you don't have both of them available, then you could use skill follow with chain attack as the last resources. So now we have 6 quiver ready before the stun. You wanna trigger the stun with basic 5, the one with 6 quiver, or if you don't have that available, you could use skill. Skill is also a much easier way to do the overcapping. And by triggering the stun, I mean when your daze meter is at about 90 to 95, it really depends on your enemy and what kind of method you're using to stun the enemy. But the goal remains the same. The moment you slash the enemy, you want to have your first hit at the moment the enemy gets stunned. And after you get your 7 slash out, you want to always use your chain attack to generate quiver. And it would be best if your anomaly happen to trigger at this moment. And by the way, if skill happens to trigger your anomaly, it would overcap automatically without losing any quivers. And the same also apply to the chain attacks. And make sure that you follow with dash basic so that you could slash immediately. And you definitely don't want to make this mistake, is that when your enemy is already overcapped, you don't release your hold attacks, cause that's gonna waste all the quivers. And I believe that some Harumasa mains out there is already screeching. But if you happens to hold attacks, remember what we said a while ago, you could dash cancel it to recover. And I want to talk a little bit about anomaly. It is very hard to get the quiver from the anomaly. There's no way that you could get anomaly quiver during the stun window on the first run. You could get it luckily and capitalize on it if you have good eyes, cause you gotta see the X mark on it. And the only realistic way to utilize the anomaly quivers is that you want to do multiple run and you want to memorize when would anomaly happens, and then you make your play based off that. Skill is actually kind of trickier because skill has very long animation time, but I will talk about it later. And then use your basic 5 as your last resources to get the desperate slash. And the one that is even more desperate is just simply hold attacks then slash if you ran out of everything, or if you don't have enough time for the skill and basic 5. And I would say that overcapping at the moment you trigger the stun is extremely important cause it's gonna save you a tons of time. But overcapping during the stun is not as important as you think. It actually matters, but you don't have to stress it if you are new to this, cause you could only lose as much as 2 slash. And yeah, that's the basic of the rotation. And welcome to the second phase of the Elden Ring final boss. I hope you still have enough HP potion to keep going. Now let's get to the animation cancel tech. There are a bunch of techs to cancel the animation, but I find that only 2 of them are significant. The first one is Harumasa's quick assist. Harumasa quick assist is simply useless and it takes a lot of time, and the only way to cancel it effectively is using ultimate as soon as you are getting into quick assist animation. The amount of time that is saved is unbelievable, especially when you are using it with Nicole. Canceling skill is the most powerful thing that you could do as Harumasa. The more you could pull this off, the more consistent you're gonna get 15-16 slash. And to do this, you wanna use your skill right after you finish the slash, and simply swap to other characters like Nicole. And notice that I already used my skill at this point, and trigger the ChainAtk back into Harumasa again. Skill swap back into Harumasa is such a bread and butter that allow you to overcap the second time easily. And the other way to do it is when you are playing with Astra. After slashing, use the skill, then swap twice into Astra. And you want to make sure that Astra is dancing right into the enemy when you swap into her by holding the directional button into the enemy before you swap into Astra. Cause if she distance herself to a certain range, the ChainAtk wouldn't be triggered. If you watch my beginner's guide, I would tell you to hold skill all the way until Harumasa drops on the ground, then spam the slash, cause that is simply easier. But if you wanna buy time for the half of the slash, you wanna hold attack into slashing. You could see when the hold basic method already hit the enemy, the hold skill method is still half of the way into slashing. And the other way to cancel the skill, you could use ultimate when this flashing animation skill is up, and you would still get your quivers. This tech is straight from Zenless Zero. I would highly suggest to check out Zenless Zero's guide and the R2's guide for even harder techs if you wanna get better at Harumasa. Those are incredible guide, by the way. So now let's wrap up with everything that we have just learned. You wanna have your 6 quiver ready on the field, and we are going through these rotation as examples. And let's start from the one with intro. So aside from the 6 quiver on the field, I generate another 2 quiver from the basic 5, and the X mark with 1 slash would automatically overcap on the boss. And I apply skill without triggering the stun, and also overcap another 3 X mark, so I could slash 8 times in the pre-stun state. Triggering ChainAtk here is not intended, but this actually doesn't matter here. And I use my skill here and swap cancel into trigger. And by the way, 19 slash on this boss is impossible without trigger, cause trigger has really fast stun trigger time. Then I chain attacks with Harumasa and get my second overcap and proceed to slash 7 times. Notice that I also got the anomaly quivers from here, but I prioritize the ultimate first. Then I hold attacks all the way when I'm doing the ultimate and release the arrow as soon as I'm in charging animation and get the last 4 slash. Now let's go with the second examples. I tune my stun with Chinyi and Harumasa here and get my first slash on the second is stunned. Then I proceed to 7 slash and notice that my anomaly is about to procs. Then I quick swap to Astra here to trigger the chain attacks and chain attack into Harumasa and got my second overcap on tops of the anomaly quivers, and I dash attack into it to proceed the 7 slash. And the only reason that anomaly quivers works here is because I memorized it and I anticipate to chain attacks on tops of that, cause I've been running this for over like 200 or 300 times. And I finished my 18 slash with the classic skill into slash. So now let's move on to the Nicole's rotation. Even though Nicole's debuff is absolutely powerful, but her debuff doesn't last long. So you do wanna swap in and out with Nicole pretty much all the time. And to be able to do this effectively, you're gonna do a lot of swap cancel. So I pop my Nicole skill here and has Harumasa use the skill immediately. And with the help of trigger, it's much easier to gauge when the enemy is gonna stun it. So I got this easy slash in the pre-stun. Then I finish my 8 slash slash here, then I skill swap cancel into Nico, and trigger the chain attack into Harumasa for the quivers, getting my second overcap here. Then I proceed to 7 slash, and trigger the chain attacks on the last slash, so that I could keep going with Nico's debuff, then quick assist cancel with ultimate, and that would save a pretty good amount of time. This is more like an Astra specific tip, is that you could use Astra's ultimate if you find yourself running out of quivers. The last rotation that I want to show you guys is from the Yoji's recent video, and I think this gameplay shows that the thing that matters the most is not always the amount of slash, it's the buff that you are maintaining, it's aligning your damage along with all the buff, and you could 100% do this rotation without manual chain attacks, because in this video, the only thing that utilized manual chain attacks is Nico's skill, so that he could get an extra quick assist from the buff on the Astral Voice. So you're gonna get 8% less attack percentage if you're using auto chain attacks. So he engaged with Nico's skill, hold skill into quick assist Harumasa to get the buff from the Astral Voice, then chain attack into Anbi for the swing jazz damage buff into Harumasa chain attacks, then swap to Bamboo for the anomaly, cause he's using Thunder Metal Force set that would give him 28% attacks, then get debuff from Nico and Astral Voice buff simultaneously, and do a typical 7 slash, which is just enough duration for the Nico's whole skill. So he swapped back into Nico's here to reapply the buff and get the typical 4 slash and the desperate 1 slash while having all the buff applied, and that's a total of 12 slash. In fact, throughout the whole rotation, his slash is averagely about 11-12 slash and still get more damage than my trigger Astra team. Even though he made a mistake by stunning too early on the last stun, ended up getting 8 slash that was supposed to be an 11, and that's why I said it's absolutely important to DPS at the moment it starts flashing, but still a phenomenal run that I could never achieve, and I could make hundreds of mistakes in a run without even realizing. So, is it worth it to play manual chain attack Harumasa? After testing manual chain attack and auto chain attack for a period of time, I would say yes, but spiritually, cause the amount of effort that you gotta put in is basically turning this game of Zenless Zone Zero into a Harumasa Zone Zero. Cause you do feels like you're playing another game. You could expect yourself to get about 8 to 15% damage increase if you're playing Harumasa optimally. At least that's what my experience is. The power levels increase is significant, but maybe not as much as you think. Like this one, I got 40.5 on the manual, and with auto I got 36.4, and this boss I've got 40.6 on manual with the trigger team, and 37.4k on the auto mode. So I would say you are probably doing it for the love of the sport, and not so much for the power levels. Like when I'm playing the auto mode, I don't feel like I made a lot of mistake, but when I'm playing in the manual mode, I feel like every move could be a mistake. And in my case, I got about 8 to 9% power levels increase, cause I still messing up here and there, but I could see that if you are able to perform it without a lot of mistake, you could get about 12 to 15%. And I do really think that Harumasa is one of the best characters in terms of his gameplay design, because as you are getting better with him, the improvement is actually rewarding. You would actually get more damage, and the ceiling is also really high for him to be interesting to play for a long period of time. I would say you would wanna jump yourself into the water and try it out, cause I think the whole journey is actually pretty fun for me. He's the kind of characters that would reflect the improvement of your skill. You could have fun with this one single characters for a really long period of time. And as for the team, the best in slot team is not the Chingy Astra team anymore, it's the Trigger Astra team or Trigger Nico team. I could see that Nico team would still outperform the Chingy Astra team, and the result from the other JP content creators also got the same test result. And I think the reason behind it is that when you're playing Harumasa with Trigger, you would get significantly more energy, and more energy means more quiver and more ultimate, so that your rotation and your resource management would become more forgiving forgiving. And it also straight up increased your DPS because you got more ultimate. This is literally best in slot for Harumasa for now, which is not what I expected. I'm also pretty surprised by the result, but it is what it is. This is probably the hardest videos I've ever made. Not only that, I gotta learn these hardest characters in the entire game. The amounts of text and the animation cancel is also crazy, and I gotta do all the breaks down on that. But it's a pretty fun ride for me. Consider like and sub, and see you next time.